Great political moves. EFF delegates are still behind closed doors at their national conference with the nomination and election of officials yet to be announced. The SACP have wrapped up their congress with a number of resolutions, and new kid on the block, MK Party, due to gather tomorrow to celebrate their first birthday. What does this all mean? Are we seeing a political realignment of some sort? Those who are in the know, that is Dr Ntsikelelo Breakfast, will come on and help us now with some analysis. Dr. Breakfast, good to have you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Is this a beginning? I mean, most importantly, let's start with the alliance itself. A beginning of a political realignment within the tripartite alliance itself, where the SACP has, others might say maybe too late, woken up to the fact that a reconfigured alliance is a dream. It's not going to happen. And so they must either win political power themselves or they'll keep on complaining that they've got only one minister while the DA has got 6.
Thabo, the debate that has broken out of late in the tripartite alliance is not new. I remember at some point, I think it must have been in 2007, there was a debate within the tripartite alliance about the role of the SACP. And it was resolved in a conference in our own backyard in Nelson Mandela Bay that the Communist Party will swell the ranks of the ANC, because what brings these political structures together, SACP, COSATU, and the ANC, is the NDR, which is the two-stage theory that you've got to have a time whereby the revolution is led by the bourgeoisie class, but in the meantime, the working class must be made ready to take over. So the argument of the Communist Party has always been about the transition from the bourgeoisie democracy to, I would say, a working class kind of a democracy, that the current political arrangement is not benefiting the working class. Now, the tripartite alliance, or let me say the ANC, is a broad church. It is a contested space. It's not an organization that has a binding ideology. It has the middle class, the working class, the Africanist, and the SACP also is in that space. So they are complaining that they are not respected as a, I mean, you heard in one of the clips, the SG of the Communist Party, that in this current political arrangement of the GNU, they've got one ministerial post, and he thinks that is a smack in the face, that according to him, it could have been better if they had been given more seats. Even though he says it's not about positions, but it is about those positions, because they want to influence the political and the economic trajectory of the country. Now, what would happen if the Communist Party sticks to its guns? Let's say they walk out of this alliance. It will be a blow in a big way to this alliance. It will be a win-lose situation, because the ANC, in as much as it is a broad church, but it has a huge chunk of the working class. I mean, the Communist Party, yes, it's a vanguard. It is the one that is providing a ideological direction to the working class. But in as much as COSATU is a school of the working class, but the constituency of the Communist Party is also in the production line. So it will be taken away from the ANC, that particular constituency. Really, it will be a blow. In fact, I would argue and say the ANC will die a natural death if this decision can be operationalized.
Yeah, but of course, our interest as normal citizens who are not involved in these political things is that, 1, we have an economy that is stagnant. 2, we have institutional decay. We've got 3, rising levels of poverty. We've got the political elite who are feasting on the state. There's corruption that's going on there. On top of all that, we are not safe in our communities. How is this realignment going to help us in those areas?
Tabo, I understand your question. You are asking a very good question, but at the same time, we're talking about politics here, politics about power. You have to have these conversations about the direction of the alliance, because the direction of the alliance has to do with also the direction of the country, because the ANC still has a partial grip in the state. So it's a political discourse in terms of what kind of a political alliance does the country have to have in pursuit of its objective realization. But of course, I mean, you are asking me a question as to how does that benefit an ordinary person on the ground. It does, because whichever class wins, it will determine whether the person on the ground benefits or not. But my concern is that I don't think, to be quite frank, the debate that has broken out of late has broken out in good faith, because some of the leaders of the Communist Party are also in government. And our government, especially the previous government of the ANC, it fell short of promoting development for the majority. And that problem can also be attributed to the communists. Some of the communists have not stood out. They have not done very well in terms of getting the job done. And that has made the ANC to be dealt with a blow in a big way because of the connection between a slow pace of service delivery and voter turnout. So for the Communist Party now to say they are breaking away because the ANC has had a downward decline is very opportunistic. Why does it cross their minds now that they want to leave, but when they were having access to state power, they didn't raise that question the same way they are raising it now?
For President Thabo Mbeki, calling them, I suppose, and the nation to that national dialogue. Do you think that is going to in any way arrest this particular hunger now for SACP to want to grab power by itself?
I have a lot of respect for former President Mbeki. He's a solid intellectual. I think he's one of the best leaders the ANC has ever produced. But at the same time, I'm very critical of his argument of the national dialogue, because national dialogues, he makes reference even himself to CODESA, have tended to be elitist. They have not been driven by the people on the ground. It's always a top-down approach. Even the CODESA that he was making a reference to, it was an elite transition, not a bottom-up approach. So that has tended to be the problem. I think one of the reasons why former President Mbeki was brought into the picture is to quell the storm in the Communist Party. Because yes, I understand that the SG says that, this is it, the Communist Party is walking out of this alliance. But I think maybe people like former President Mbeki were asked behind closed doors to soften that discourse, that without the Communist Party in the tripartite alliance, the alliance is doomed to fail. But with this discourse of his, of national dialogue, I don't think that he's going to get a buy-in from the alliance partners by and large.
A timing of this particular resolution that, as the Solomon Paila says, the SG, is a departure from what has been happening traditionally. There's been a departure from what has been happening traditionally, where there's now an Umkhonto weSizwe party, another splinter, if you like, of the African National Congress. Can they take advantage of this particular move as well, much to the decline of the African National Congress?
That's a very interesting question, Thabo, because they are on record, even though they are denying it. They are on record having said that it could have been good if the ANC had joined forces with the EFF or MK. They said so. I mean, we all know that they have said so in public. But the very same people have framed the discourse that Zuma engineered state capture. But now it could have been better if the ANC had gravitated to MK. It's a contradiction. You can't have it both ways. you've got to make up your mind, you know. You can't say that this person is this and that, and when it suits you, there's nothing wrong with this person. That's why I'm saying some of their arguments are not advanced in good faith. I think it's about power, it's about positions. Even, I'm not sure if the SG of the Communist Party was listening to himself when I was speaking about positions, that we got only one position. But at the same time, he said it's not about these positions, it's about our influence in this tripartite alliance. So there is some kind of opportunism in some of the demands that are made by the Communist Party. There are things that the Communist Party can do, though, at a strategic level to advance its agenda of pursuing a socialist model of development. For instance, there is a debate that is underway at the moment about the ownership of spaza shops. Where is the Communist Party in this discourse? That is a terrain of the working class. That is a struggle of the working class, but you don't hear them. But they want state power, you know. So there are some gaps in the country where the vanguard can fill in terms of mobilizing the working class. And unfortunately, I mean, and this is one of the weaknesses of the Communist Party, you don't see them on a large scale on the ground, in townships, in villages, the way they're supposed to be embedded. You don't see them. So it begs the question about the understanding of the working class, about Marxism and Leninism, and what would happen if indeed the Communist Party breaks away from the tripartite alliance. Will they make a huge impact? I don't think so.
Let's shift tact and look at the other National People's Assembly that's taking place, that of the EFF. Clearly, some decisive changes are about to happen. Not so much maybe at the head of the party, but at least that top six is going to be looking particularly different to what we've seen, at least in the last 10 years. Is that going to reignite some degree of confidence in the party?
Well, first of all, Thabo, I think what stood out for me was the speech of Malema. It was one of the best speeches I've ever listened to. Very powerful speech. He killed the debate about what the party stands for. So that issue has been settled because he provided an ideological clarity in terms of the ideological standpoint of the party, that the party subscribes to Marxism and Leninism, the party subscribes to the ideas of Frantz Fanon, and you know, this notion of Africa for Africans, and so on. Now, that was important because the party has been dealt with a blow in a big way in terms of having this exodus of leaders. Now, coming back to the issue that you have raised on matters of leadership, I say to that, the leaders that are going to emerge, I think everything is going to go according to plan regarding what Julius wants, which is a contradiction because in that speech, well, it's a good speech, but he spoke about a bourgeois kind of a democracy, and he describes it as a very elitist kind of a practice of a democracy. Now, the problem is that it's a contradiction because the people who have divergent opinions have tended to be suppressed. For instance, one of the weekly newspapers broke a story that the people who nominated Ndlozi were kicked out of the party, and even Ndlozi himself. So I'm saying there are tendencies of purging in the party where decisions are made on top and brought down to the rank and file. And that also speaks to the leaders that will emerge. So I don't think that at a critical level, it will be a leadership that will reflect the views of the majority. And that also has contributed to some of the shortcomings of the party.
Very clear they will not be attending the Congress of the MK party. What does that mean for the Progressive Caucus?
Well, the cat is out of the bag. There is a tension between the two political parties. I mean, you heard Malema making a very interesting speech, I think 2 weeks ago, that he's not going to be soft on someone who is rough on him. So he's on record having said that it looks like Zuma has not forgiven him because he took him to court and the court ruled that Zuma broke his oath of office. He was implying, in my opinion, that Zuma is still holding a grudge against him, and that, you know, the EFF is going to institute the legal action. If Zuma fails to pay back the money, they're going to attach Nkandla. So you can see that I don't want to say the two political parties are crossing swords, because MK has been very strategic in terms of not responding to Malema in public. I mean, MK did convey a message of support even yesterday, indirectly, not there in person. There was no one from MK there in person, but EFF is not buying it. And that will also have a negative impact on the Progressive Caucus, because there are issues of trust between these two political. Because Malema thinks that MK has betrayed the EFF, because MK, according to Malema, they've been trying to recruit members of the EFF, while in public they say that they want to unify the black political parties. So I think Julius feels very much betrayed by Umkhonto weSizwe, and I don't think that relationship is going to improve.
Party-wise, looking, I mean, from what we're hearing, our reporter says, for a slimmer, more sleeker EFF, with maybe doing away with regions, focusing on local structures and national structures, and those areas, particularly where the leadership didn't do well, doing away with that, not for the idea, for example, of a women's league or a youth league of some sort. Is that a good idea for him to, I suppose, get a handle on the party?
Well, just to be fair and square to the EFF, they did give away documents in advance in the build-up to this conference that is underway. But the question is, where do those documents come from? Do they come from the rank and file, or do they come from the leadership? But Malema struck me as someone, in fact, he said that he feels strongly about these issues, that some people in the EFF, when they lose positions, they gravitate to other spaces of power, whereby they want to hold on to power elsewhere, you know, by being a chairperson of this youth wing or that structure. So I think that's one of the reasons why, for instance, you know, there's this change of heart in terms of how the party does things. Now the party is going to abandon the student command of the EFF and have a youth command, because it wants to pitch a message to a wider audience of young people and not confine the issues of young people to student formations, which is all well and good, but it begs the question, who is going to lead now the youth wing, and what kind of a leader does this youth wing need? Because there's a difference, Thabo, between being a leader at the University of Young People and leading the broader section of the youth. Because you are dealing with young people who are involved in all sorts of things. Some might not have gone to the university, so you need to pitch your message in a particular way and so on. But the rationale, according to the EFF, is to grow the membership of the party. So I wouldn't say that is bad, but I'm just interested who's going to lead that youth wing. I don't think that, I mean, what is wrong in having a women's league? Because the history of our sisters is the history of the oppression. Our sisters, they still bear the brunt of gender-based violence. They are still affected by a lot of things in the workplace. So they need to discuss, you know, their own issues as well and make some political demands.
Yeah. Umkhonto weSizwe party, as we wrap up, 10's a year old. Are we clearer on this party? And are we likely going to get more clarity on really what they stand for? I mean, they are got Floyd Shivambu now. He's saying he's trying to clear exactly all this confusion around what the party stands for, and where, for example, it will contest by-election, it will come out strongly, and it will really epitomize what Umkhonto weSizwe is about.
No, I think now that we have a constitution, they have a constitution, I think that has provided a conceptualization of what the party stands for. in terms of the ideological underpinnings of the party. I wasn't clear, I must say, that what the party stands for, whether is it a socialist party, is it a leftist party, but now I think Floyd also has something to do with this in a good way, because there is some clarity in terms of the standpoint of the party, that the party believes in, they say in their documents, Marxism and Leninism as well, same stuff that the EFF subscribes to. They also see themselves as a vanguard of the working class, meaning that they are leading the struggles of the working class on the ground, that the working class cannot exist outside the party, that the party provides that political direction. And of course, there's some stuff about the philosophical tradition of black consciousness there. But what confuses me, and I don't say this in a wrong way, is this notion that, you know, we must have some kind of a feudal system. How do you juxtapose the two? Because they also are in favor. Yeah, I mean, this is a very contentious issue, but you know, the idea of, you know, having traditional leadership in a democracy. Yes, we must respect our traditional leaders, but how do you juxtapose that with the socialist model of development? That seems to be the issue that confuses me and some people.
Political analyst Dr Ntsikelelo Breakfast, appreciate your time. Thanks so much for coming on the Newsfeed PM.